There we go. All right. So tonight's session is on introduction to Spark machine learning libraries, right? So hopefully most of you started working on your assignment too, right? So here is the agenda. We're gonna talk a little bit of summary of the new skills that you're getting, some key reminders for assignment two. I'll show you a little bit how Markdown for notebooks works. Very important, there is a code location in assignment two, part two, where most of the people get stuck. So we're going to talk about how to do the parser function. We're going to talk about the pipeline, additional part two tips, and I'm going to show you a bonus example, logistic regression model for parenthetical data. It's additional example. Now, remember this, the histograms, correlation plots, you don't have to do it for your assignment, but this is something that I want you to walk away with from this session. It's something that I want you to keep in mind, perhaps, or maybe something that you can discuss. In your paper, you need to discuss some ideas on how you can improve the performance of the model, right? So you got that stuff. Well, you do need some visualizations, but I'm going to show you more advanced. Okay? Sounds fair? All right. So what you're doing, you're learning new skills. Instead of working on your local PC, right, you're working on the cloud. So think about the benefits of the cloud, right? Don't think about I only got 10 hours. No, don't think of it this way. Don't think of it as a privilege. You got your 10 hours, right? So you're learning how to use the services, and you need to learn how to use your resources. It's very important. You don't want to uh, leave, right, and keep this environment running. So that's the reason why they put those 10 hours, because people before used to just not care. They kept the environment running and the resources were getting consumed. So IBM decided to stop. Okay, so just know that part. It's not me, it's IBM. Okay, now attention. Do not enter credit card number. Doing so is not going to give you more hours, but doing so, what's going to happen is that your account is no longer be the academic trial. It will turn into paid account, right? Not only you may be charged, but also TA, which is me, will not be able to support because things are different on paid account versus academic account. I don't have a paid account. I'm using the academic account, right? Similar like you, except for faculty, well, maybe just a little, you can add more services for the faculty. But just remember, do not enter credit card number. If you feel like you need to, better submit the Salesforce case. And we're going to talk about alternatives. But please do not do this, okay? Another thing that I would like you to do is take a look at how many capacity hours you have right now. And where do you stand? If you have only 2 hours left, right, and you have not started this assignment, then you may need to schedule the Zoom call with me, and I will do a big push for you for assignment for part one. Okay, I could do you a big favor. I could help you with part one because on part one, right, you don't need to use a whole lot of hours. It should not take more than 1 hour. If it's taking you more than 1 hour, then you might be doing something incorrect because the only thing you need for part one is to do the credentials. That's it. The code is there, right? You write in the code for part two. Okay. So important, do not upgrade the IBM cloud environment, as I just said. You want to stop the runtime before exiting, but keep in mind, closing the browser tab does not stop the runtime environment. The kernel is going to keep on, the environment will keep on running and consuming hours. And believe it or not, I've seen students with negative balance on hours because it does not really check how many you have left. It keeps on running until it times out. So please stop the kernel, stop the environment. Please do not open anything with IBM. They're not going to debug your code. They're not going to help you, okay? You need to submit the Salesforce ticket for assistant, and please respond to the emails because some students fail. If there is no response, I'm instructed by my manager to close the case in 2 days. No response for 2 days, case closed, and I also contact the instructor. Okay. You have to upload the data before creating the notebook. Do not delete object storage. And please do not open two notebooks in the edit mode. Remember from last time, you can open the notebook in the view mode or in the edit mode, right? Because when you start opening notebook in the edit mode, it kicks on the kernel, right? When you run the notebook, how do you run it? Do not skip cells because you might end up with errors. You have to run everything starting from the top. Remember, credentials appear only once, and I told you where to put them, right? So all notebook cells must be executed in the same order, right? In order starting from the top, and the code must run and return correct results to get the maximum grade for the code part, right? So you have to make sure that it returns correct results. And I'm gonna talk to you about some pointers there. Okay. Now, very important, it's not in here, not anywhere. Python 3.10 was just pushed out. Python 3.10 was just pushed out. But the thing is, the code, the notebook that you were given was tested in Python 3.9. It was not tested in Python 3.10 because Python 3.10 was not available until this week. So you make sure you select Python 3.9. For some time, they have both environments, but we don't know for how long. It does not say, there is no ETA, nothing. It does not say when Python 3.9 will be removed. So if you are submitting the assignment late, or if you have an incomplete for this assignment, for any reason, please bear in mind that it's quite possible that Python 3.9 will be gone, okay? Just keep that in mind. I don't know when, we don't have the exact date, we don't have the exact time, but 3.10 is there, okay? Spark 3.4 is not there yet, but it exists, see? Anytime it could be updated, so nobody knows. But I do know now, Python environment has been updated this week, but 3.9 still exists. You will see the warning, but you may ignore the warning, okay? So stick with it unless you're super good with Python and want to take a risk and are comfortable with resolving some errors. Okay, just know it. Oh, so your current used, okay, question here. Current capacity is used 3.7 and 6.3 remaining. This is fine. Okay, this is fine. Well, everybody is going to be different. Do you know why? Because, well, every student is different. It depending on the issues that they may have run into. But what I don't want to see is, I don't want anybody to be under 5 right now. And also it depends on the status where you are in the assignment, because maybe somebody already finished part 2. I don't know. Okay, we don't know that. All right. I'm gonna show you, but I'll have to get into the edit mode to show you the markdown cell syntax, because you're asked to do the table of contents, but here is a little bit how to cheat. It's gonna be similar structure. Instead of Titanic data, you're gonna have what? Lower birth weight data, right? You're gonna still have a session to load the libraries. You're gonna still have a session to access and explore data, parse data. Jesus, you're gonna have all the sections are gonna be the same, except you're gonna call it low birth weight data, right? So each session within the notebook has a unique name, right? First thing that what you see here, this is a main heading, level 1 heading, 1 hash mark. See, this is a level 1 heading, 1 hash mark. Then this is a level 2 heading. You got 2 hash marks in front of the text, right? Then you're gonna see the bulleted point list. So hyphen, it stands for the circled point list. Then what you see is in the square brackets, right? It's a menu, but what's a menu? It's a set of what? Internal links, right? And each internal link has its anchor. Like for example, see here, as you see it here, Titanic data, right? This is anchor ID called Titanic data. And this link, Titanic data, is pointing to that section. See this? And I'm gonna show it to you in another example, but I'll show it to you, I promise. Okay? And this is the external link. That's how you do it. Okay. So this external link, for example, takes you to the source, right? Okay, so that's that. Oh, let's actually go to the notebook. Let's go to the notebook. I know it's gonna use a little bit of my hours, but well, okay. But what I was talking about is this. See this? I've got this little warnings, right? I have this little warnings in here. So let's see. I'll go back to the project, and I think if I don't have it uploaded, which should not be the case, I should have it. Okay, not sure what's happened. Okay, so it's in here. Let's see. Okay, so if I don't have it uploaded, I'll take care. Oh, it's in here. Machine learning Titanic. Do you see this? Do you see this problem? It shows me this little warning. Why is it showing me the warning? Well, it's because it's showing me the warning because Python 3.9 has been deprecated. Well, it's still there, but you're gonna see this warning, okay? Let's open this thing. Oops, I have to unlock, not sure why it was locked, but I'm gonna unlock it. Now what I'm gonna do, I have to open it in the edit mode because I need to show you how the syntax works here. So right now it starts in my environment, right? It's still Python 3.9, all right? It's still there. You still should be able to select it, but it won't be available for long. So just watch out, okay? Make sure that you do the work on time, all right? Oh, okay, I'll show you what's happening because you need to run it. When you create the headings, yes, it's gonna show, oh, wait a minute, take a look at this. So this is a warning. You're gonna see this warning right now. Okay, so let me show you something. See, I double click. Yes, there is a hash mark. But when you run this cell, it's gonna fix it. Okay? This is a markdown, but this is a format. This is a syntax. When you run it, when you actually click run, it will fix it. Okay? So this is a level 1 heading. Okay, hopefully I answered the question. Right? Did I? Oh, okay, you need to check the cell type. Make sure that the cell type is marked down. Make sure the cell format that it's not anything else. It's not row. It has to be marked down. Okay, you need to make sure that the cell is marked down. You need to make sure that the environment is correct. Okay. See, I run it. It should be like this because the format, the cell format, is marked down. Okay. Remember that. You have to. Yes, excellent, Arthur. Yes, please try that. But it's a cell format. Now I'm gonna double click here. This is just the text, right? Okay, here is a table of contents. And when I run this, take a look. I click on this load libraries. It's gonna take me to this section. Okay, so that's what you're gonna need. Well, I'm not gonna run the code for you, but I'm just showing you what's happening. Okay, so I double click here. See this? It takes me to the sections. But what is this? Well, you're not required to quite know HTML, but it's a skill that's good to have. This is what a table, right? So in HTML, you're gonna start this table tag over here, right? That's a starting. And then you're gonna have an ending table tag, right? Here, table. The table consists of what? Rows, right? So here is a tag, table row, right? And then you have the closing table row. See this? The table row consists of what? Of the cells, right? So you have the cell is called table data. So see, here is one cell. I wanted to keep it blank. Another one I want to call, I put column header called variable, right? In another column, I call it description. But what is this? See, this is a cell, but I want this cell to span 7 rows. Do you see this? Because I have an image in here. I put image in the cell, and I want to span this image 7 rows. So how do I do that? Take a look. Like here in the first row, I have how many cells? 1, 2, 3, right? 4. In the next row, I will have 3 because the first cell of the first row spans several rows, okay? Or just know it. And this is how you do put the image. Remember, this image, you cannot copy and paste the picture. You have to take the URL. So that's image source, okay? You have to specify the source of an image. You cannot copy paste the picture directly, okay? So here we go, I'm gonna run this. That was on the markdown, right? It's just good to have. You're gonna have something similar but different column names, okay? Just different column names. Picture, this is optional, but I did it just to show you what can be done, okay? Next thing is I talked to you about the table cells, right? Table cells, table row, and that cell spans 7 rows, okay? Now, next thing is a parser, but before we do that, I may have to stop kernel. See, we have to shut down. We have to make sure that, you know, I'm saving things too. All right, so what's gonna happen is we can look at the code. We need to define something called the label document. And what's a label document? It consists of what 3 elements? The first element has to be unique identifier. The second element is a delimited list of columns that I'm using to predict. And the last one is what we are predicting, right? But when you declare this label document, you need to make sure that the last parameter is called label. If you change it, it's not gonna work, right? It's gonna return the error. But is a label basically, what's a label? The independent, the variable that we are predicting, right? A dependent variable. What's going to happen if the passengers has survived? We want to set it to 1.0. If the passenger died, we want to set it to 0.0. So we have to define the custom parser function, right? And it's going to take one line at a time from RDD, and it's going to return the label document. What is this? Now, take a look at it. It's taking one row at a time, but what's in the first row? The first row contains column headers, right? So what we want to do is we want to skip the first row from parsing, right? How do we do that? Well, see here, this is, remember lambda, it's a inline function. So what it's doing, it's saying if the row contains the word name, remember name is one of the columns, right? Your first row is going to contain what names, right? It's going to, the very first row is going to contain column names. There is a column name called name. So see this, if that thing is in a, if that thing is in a found, right? If that string is found in a row, we skip that row, right? Everything else will be parsed and the data is loaded into this data frame called Titanic data documents 2DF. It's a label documents, okay? Remember, so label is 1.0 if the passenger survived, right? And 0.0 if the passenger died. Something along this line will be for your part 2 data. Oh, another thing, I don't know if I said or not. Please do not share part 2 code in a discussion, in class discussion. Please do not share part 2 code, okay? Please do not. Let your classmates work for it too. All right. So this is a parser function, and let's look at it again. I'm gonna show you something that's gonna save you life in here. Well, not life, but life in this course, let's say. What you can do is this, list the column names in here. This is what is done. You list the column names. You start from 0 because the position numbering in Python starts from 0. So passenger first and last name, right? Name column is at position 0. P class is at position 1. Age is at position 2, right? So you want to do this. This will save you a lot of time. Trust me. So here, this is a what? Label is a target, right? So what are we predicting in this case? And what position is it at? We are predicting if the person is survived, right? So that's at position 4. See this? Survived is at position 4. Okay? At the moment, the way it is in the data, it survived is 1, and if died, it's 0. But our function, our method, right, was a label. It takes values 1.0 and 0.0. So what we need to do is we need to convert 1 to 1.0 and convert 0 to 0.0, right? So how do we do this? Well, in here, right, it's going to parse the line. It's going to split the values, right, into elements. Then it's looking at the element number 4. The way I did it, I said, okay, if the element number 4 is greater than 0, then it's a survived, right? 1.0. Otherwise, it's 0.0. See, the survived is a variable name, right? And what is this? It just converting. It just saying if it's a 1.0 or 0.0. What am I doing here? Well, okay. I need to take the delimited list of what column names that are not ID and that are not predictors. Remember, person ID here, this is the unique identifier. So that goes what? Here, the first one here, right? Label document, it's a first parameter. The rest of this, I need to do the delimited list, but here we have a little problem in this data set. Name is a PII, it's a personal identifying information. It should not be used for analysis. So in the paper, I would have to write something like that. I'm excluding name, passenger first and last name, because it's a personal identifying information and should not be used for analysis, right? But I have to keep the person ID. I have to have some kind of unique identifier for this function, okay? Now, for the method to run, actually. Okay, so this is what concatenation. I put first position 1, position 2, position 3. Why I'm not including 4? Because 4 is what I'm predicting, right? And 5 is the ID. Remember that you have to watch at the positions. If you take this code verbatim and do not update for your part 2 data, you're gonna be predicting if mother is a smoker, okay? Trust me, and then all your analysis are gonna be wrong. The whole paper will be incorrect, you know, okay? Another thing is, so here, this is just accessing the data, right? And I need to show you something. After you read data, right? After you read data, you are looking at the first 5 rows, right? You're outputting the first 5 rows of the data here. In here, well, this code, right? After you're doing the parsing, this is building the data frame, and then it's building the first 5 records. Note, if you see the column names in the first row, right? If the first row of the output from this cell contains the column names, it means that you need to go back and edit this line of code. Okay, this is how you know, because you don't want the column names to be treated as a data itself. So you want to look at this output really carefully. So that's one pointer here. If it's returning, see this here, you're building this data frame. If it is returning the column names in the first row, it means something must be wrong. You're not excluding the column names. So you have to look, because there is no column called name in the data you're working with for part 2, okay? Here you're splitting data into training and test set. Well, I know that in other courses you were taught to do 0.7, 0.3. Well, you can try that, but whatever you try, document in the paper, right? So then I need to tell you another thing is, well, over here, that's another catch. When you build the ROC curve plot, the area under the ROC curve always between 0.5, and 1. If your area under the rock curve is 0.4, perhaps, then it means you need to go back. Something is wrong, okay? So that's another pointer. Okay, now if you look at this thing here, so that was about the parser. I spelled it out, and I'm gonna do an example, another example, right? So that's what is that? That's a pipeline, right? It has 3 stages: tokenizer, hashing, and a method call. Okay, so that's what it is in here. All right, you call in the logistic regression method here. And now another thing very important: when you read your data, this is for both parts, you need to add this line: option in for schema true. What happens if you don't? When you do the histograms for each column, the problem is you're gonna get not histograms. When you do the descriptive statistics for the H column, you're gonna see the average ASCII value, not the average age. You're gonna see the average ASCII value of an age because it gets read as a string. Okay, so you need to put this option in for schema true. When you're looking at the statistics, if you see the average higher than the maximum, it means that you may have forgotten this line of code. Okay, so just watch out for that. Okay, and this is a different data set, but well, you're gonna get a notebook. I'm gonna give you that notebook, the parent count and the data. But remember this: most of the code errors are where? In a parser function. You cannot just take the code and plug it in without editing. You need to edit. But what I recommend is this: edit the code, prepare the code, right, before you actually try to do anything here. So if you want to take this chunk here you want to list the column names in your data, right? You want to list, this is very important. I know you're listing the columns already at the top, but you want to put a comment like this. So when you start coding, it's very easy to see the position of the element, right? So I recommend to do this, okay? Maybe it will take a little bit of time, but it pays, okay? So, and for credentials, where are you gonna put? You're not gonna put it all over the place. You're gonna put it here. You're gonna run everything in order, right? And there is also some data exploration, okay? Now, this is a par income data. In this case, we're going to build a logistic regression model to predict the 10 years risk of coronary heart disease. So what you have a patient ID, you have a patient gender, if she is male or female, you have an age at exam time, you have some other information such as education. Notice this, what do you see at the position 4 and 5? If the person is a smoker, and this is the average number of cigarettes smoked per day, right? So you may want to take a note of these 2 columns, right? Because see, if you're smoking if you're smoking at least 1 cigarette per day, you're a smoker, right? So do you see there is some sort of like a linearity between these 2 columns? Well, and see here, it tracks if the person is on a blood pressure medicine, well, in etc. But this is what we are predicting. If the person has a 10-year risk of coronary disease. In this case, the data set is bigger, right? There are 16 column totals. A patient ID will be used as an identifier, right? So the column at position 16 will be labeled, and everything else that we want to use will be what? The limited strings that we create, right? So, but I'm gonna show you before I show the histogram code. So I'm gonna again stop kernel just to make sure, just in case I'm getting paranoid, but I'm gonna stop. Wait, I had to run this cell. Now I'm gonna stop again. Stop kernel. Okay, so what I'm gonna do right now, first I'm gonna jump out. I'm gonna click on leave, right? Okay, I see. Okay, what I'll have to do now is I'm gonna go, there are 2 ways. I can check within this project to make sure that nothing is running, right? I can check environment with this project. I did a good job with copying. I'm gonna, just to be sure, I'm gonna go again, administrator, and I'm gonna check environmental runtime. See, I get paranoid, but it's better than, you know, running out of hours. See, I'm good now, right? Nothing is running, I'm good. So now what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna go back to my project. And I just saw it. Okay, let's see, view all projects. It was in a demo. I did not re-upload because okay, so that it should be here. No, not here. Sorry, guys. Sorry, I'm a little bit on project. It's in a Spark demo. Spark demo should be here. Okay, it's in the Spark demo. Notice this little. Notice this little warning, right? Why do I see the warning? Because I used Python 3.9 to do the work, right? It will be going away, but today we are still good, right? So what I'll do is, since I don't want to be running, I don't want to be running my environment while I'm staring at the code. What do you need to do? You need to go in a view mode, right? You're gonna go in a view mode just to see. See, you're gonna get this warning, but it's okay, all right? For right now, it's still available, but it won't be. We don't know for how long, okay? Now again, see this? Those are the table of contents, nice links. See, this is the data, and I put different picture in here. This is a data set source, which is what, external link, right? So I'm reading data. Well, of course, for you, when you run it, you're gonna have a different credentials, right? You're gonna have different credentials. And I'm gonna give it to you with the output. But bear in mind that you cannot copy and paste my bucket in here, okay? So that's what it's doing here. It's just reading the libraries, right? What is this? I'm doing myself a big favor. I'm listing all of the columns and their position number, right? I'm doing that just to help myself. Now, remember this, you have person ID, that's an identifier. Person info is a delimited list of column names. Label is what I'm predicting at the position 16. What I did was I experimented with different column combinations. So that's why you see it commented out. But mainly what you have to do is you have to check here if what you have at the position number 16, right? You need to check if it's greater than 0, then set it for 1.0. Otherwise, set it for 0.0, right? So you're parsing, you're splitting the line, you're checking the element, right? And this one, what is this? That's a concatenation of the columns. And I tried different combinations because I tried. Okay, now take a look at this. So that's gonna just run this, right? It's gonna return, I'm sorry, it's gonna return the label document. And the label document consists of what? Values of 0, so this is the identifier. Note, the position is different, right? Because I'm not going to be predicting whether the person is a smoker, right? I'm not gonna take the code and blindly copy it from the other part, right? So here, that's a parser function, right, for this. Here, what I'm doing is, I'm reading the data. Am I doing it correctly? Well, I hope so. Well, first of all, I have to change this to a 1. You have two options. You can change this to a 1, or if it's a 2, you can go and change everywhere else in the code to 2. But I think it's easier to change it here, all right? Well, you're just reading it, and you output in the first 5 rows. Well, this is a data exploration. Print schema is just gonna tell you the data types, right? If the column may have missing values, well, in this data, there are no missing values, all right? Here, it's showing me the number of rows. This is just another way to see the structure of the data. Well, I'm just describing. I do describe, but it's not as nice as above. But it's just showing columns and their data type, right? In here, I want to do the counts, right? Why am I doing it? Because I can see that my data set is unbalanced, right? I have more patients who are not at risk, the number of patients who are at risk, right? And you may need to do a little bit of the review from earlier coursework on how you handled unbalanced data sets, because you have a discussion, right? You have a write-up for part 2, the data is unbalanced also, okay? Just keep that in mind, all right? Now here, what am I doing? This is just, I'm doing just some of the counts. I'm gonna say, okay, let's look at the education level and see at each education level, how many people I have that are at risk, how many are not. I'm just doing the analysis. I want to see perhaps if there are other factors, if some factors are have stronger impact than the others, right? And I'm doing the visualization here. Well, for the histograms, I can do one column at a time, but you see how many columns are in here, right? So, well, I'll show you the shortcut, but here, before we do that, what this does, remember, it's looking at the average age, right? For people who are at risk and for people who are not, right? And then we are doing the age distribution. At the moment, it's just the age. I did this, just the age. Then I want to look at the age distribution for people who are at risk, right? Well, that's what it's doing in here. It's just doing the distribution for people who are at risk. This is how you would check if there are missing values. I know there are none, but it's good to know how to check it. You're gonna check, see if you're looping through the columns and you're checking if the values is null and then you're taking a sum. So for example, suppose that male column has 5 missing values. It will return 5, right? Because it's checking the values, right? And you're gonna have, see, this is null, this thing is null, is gonna return true 5 times, and we're taking the sum, so that's gonna be 5. There are 5 missing values. So this tells you how many values are missing in each column, if there are any. In this case, we do not. Okay? Well, you need to know how to do it. So again, you're not asked to do it, but it's something for you to walk away with. Okay? And here is another way to show the data types, right? When you convert to pandas data frame. Another thing is that this is a describe. Here is where you need to look. Well, take a look at this age in here. You want to make sure that the minimum age is less than the mean age, right? And you want to make sure that the maximum age is higher than the minimum and higher than the mean. If not, you may have forgotten one line of code, okay? You're analyzing the ASCII values. You're not analyzing the actual data, right? And see what it's doing. I don't like what it's doing in here. If it's a male, 1 male, 0 female, but for some reason it's taking the mean. Well, I don't like it, but that's all right. Now, you can go ahead and draw histogram for one column at a time, but this is a shortcut, okay? Well, this is a function. What it does, it takes this data frame and it takes the list of the columns, right? Which is what? It's another data frame. So you pass it this data frame columns. This is how you get. So you have the data frame, and this is the data frame columns. You take in the list of columns, all right? Then here you're specifying the size, number of rows and number of columns. Well, I know that I have about what? How many columns do I have? About 18-ish, right? Columns in my data. So I want to show it by 6 rows and 3 columns. So that's what I do here. I pass this. And it's kind of like, what it's doing is doing like a subplot. This is a subplot size. And for each column, we're just gonna do a little plot in here, all right? So this is basically, it's a function that will draw the histogram for all columns. But of course, assumption is all columns are numeric. Otherwise, you may have to add some type of checks, okay? Then I chose color green. You can change color in here, all right? So you're gonna have this code with you. It's not something that you're required to do, but you want to work away from this course with as much as possible, okay? So that's that. This is how you would do the pair plot. You need to import the Seaborn package for this. And this takes time to run, so that's why I'm not running it. I'm just showing you what can be done, okay? But this is my favorite visualization. And you need the Seaborn package for this. This is the correlations plot. Remember earlier, I was pointing out the number of cigarettes per day and if the person is a smoker, because those two columns have a high correlation, right? So remember, correlation goes between what? 1 and -1, right? But here the color code indicates the strength of the correlation, right? So if you take a look at this, well, this one, of course, on a diagonal, the column is correlated with itself, so you may want to just ignore it. But, well, take a look at this. Number of cigarettes per day, and if the person is a smoker, you probably want to use one, but not the other, right? It depends. Probably I care if the person is a smoker, more likely. So you could try to see what happens with one, and then you can try what happens with other, a little bit trial and error. But you know this here, that number of cigarettes per day, and if the person is a smoker, those two are correlated, right? All right. And you also want to look at this one, okay, prevalent hypertension and the diabetes. So see, sometimes you might want to, if you have collinear columns, you may want to keep one but not the other. And see the 0.7. Well, usually if someone has a high systolic blood pressure, they're gonna have high diastolic, things like that, You want to look at it, right? Then you want to look at this glucose, and I think it's gonna be this one, right? Well, you have labels here. You have labels across the bottom. So well, see this, if person has a diabetes and then the high glucose, see this? So you want to, sometimes if there are a lot of columns, you want to run on column subset. It's not going to be the case for your assignment too, but again, I need to show you stuff. Now, here, well, this is just reading the data. And this is the first 5 rows in. This is just when you read, right? This is just when you read. Now, here you're creating the data frame. Important. Why did I didn't put name in here? Because there is no column called name. There is a column called patient ID, and it's a case sensitive, right? So I call it here. Then I'm gonna call my parse document. But what I need to pay attention to here, I look here. If I see in here the column names, right? If I see the column names, then I'm in trouble, right? I'm not supposed to see the column names in here. If I do, then something is wrong in this line of code, okay? Or if you're getting the error. Now, remember important question from last time, the 2 types of commands, right? Sometimes the command is not actually executed right away, right? So it might be a little bit difficult to troubleshoot because see, like you run the cell where the function is defined, right? But you might not see the error until the function is actually called, right? So you might think that the error is caused by this cell. But the problem is where? Upstairs in the parser function. So don't be confused. Yes, you may see that the cell that causes an error is the one where you call the function. But the problem could be inside the function itself. Okay? Well, so you're gonna build the model, etc. You're splitting the data into test and training. You're gonna do the thing, what do you call that? It's not a confusion matrix, but it's just a tabulation. You want to predict how many were predicted as at risk that are, sometimes you want to look how many are at risk that are not actually at risk, etc. Right? You want to just look at that. Well, it's here, it's a tabulation. I just want to know how many were at risk that are not at risk, how many were predicted not at risk that are actually at risk. And we are evaluating the model. And another stop point, if I see my area under the ROC curve under 0.5, something is wrong, right? Well, here is 0.5. It's best when it's approaching 1, right? I would have to tweak. I would have to do eliminate some columns because there's some collinearity, right? You always want to check. And you want to make sure that the predictors are not dependent among each other, right? So it's very important for logistic regression. We do data exploration because we need to make sure that predictors are independent among each other. Like I just showed you an example, right? If somebody is a smoker, a number of cigarettes per day. Of course, if you're smoking 5 cigarettes per day, you're a smoker, right? But sometimes you want to see how many cigarettes per day just to see the degree of smoking, perhaps. Or you just care if somebody smokes or not. It's up to you, it's your decision, right? But you have to see, you probably don't want to keep both for analysis. Okay? Of course, because you know that it's going to be yes if somebody smokes more than one, all right? And what I did was I spelled it out for you in the slides here. I put this code where it's calling the function to do the histograms, but of course, well, you don't have to do it, you're not required, but it's just for you. And also, well, if you had hours left, right, probably you won't. But in general, it's also possible to use naive Bayes method. But if you discuss naive Bayes method, do you remember the assumption of the method, the independence assumption? You have to discuss it in a paper, right? So see, like if I was going to use naive Bayes here, I would have to eliminate some predictors that are dependent from each other, because the method assumes that the predictors are what? Independent from each other, right? But you can consider naive Bayes, you can consider decision tree, but if you say, okay, I think naive Bayes method will work for this, you need to explain why, okay? And not only because the column is binary. If the column is binary, it does not necessarily mean that the method is suitable. So I would recommend doing a region and applying the region when you write the paper, okay? Well, because see, to get a higher score, you need to make sure that you explain the output, not just turn in the output, okay? Well, this is just for the histogram. I put the output here. For correlation heat map, you need the NumPy package, and you need the matplotlib, and you need the seaborn. I put it separately here, okay? You need the seaborn, but very important, sometimes if you throw in an error, you want to make sure that when you read data, make sure that you read it correctly, right? And here it's better to use 2 ponders. I found it easier, okay? On figure size, well, your figure size is going to be different. It depends on number of columns, okay? And then you specify if you want to annotate, which is if you want to see the actual value, and the line width, okay? So that's what it is, right? You can specify. Very important, you have to save your notebook as a PDF or HTML. You follow the same steps that you did for last assignment, okay? This is another example where they use pipelines to predict if HVAC system is operational. That's a heating and ventilation and air conditioning system. So basically, they're comparing the set point temperature with the actual temperature, right? And if they're not equal, then it's a fault, right? And otherwise, it's not. And they're trying to predict. They're trying to predict if the system is operational. So that's another example. Okay. Okay. Now I'm gonna take some questions. Go ahead. Questions, please. Questions. This is a big assignment, right? So if people don't ask questions, I'm gonna start asking questions. So is this okay to wait until next Tuesday to start working on the assignment? No, right? What happens if you wait until the last minute? The code stops working, right? Things go wrong. So, right? Okay. How many hours does this project typically use? Again, it's individual and depends on who? It depends on the users. For the first one, for the part one, you should not be consuming more than 1 hour. Trust me, because all you have to do is credentials block. All you have to do is just the credentials and update the bucket name. That's it, and run. That's it, and then you save it as a HTML. Nothing else. You're not writing anything for part one. So it should not take more than an hour. I would say even maybe 1/4 of an hour, half an hour. Okay? Next one, it depends on you. You need to prepare the code ahead of time. If it returns an error, stop the kernel immediately. Do not run the kernel when you're looking at the code. Just look at it separately. Then you want to restart the kernel and rerun. But do not keep the notebook in the edit mode while you are doing the code, right? And another problem is this. So you Arthur, I'm gonna use an example, just don't take offense. But Arthur, suppose you're working on assignment and you have the notebook in the edit mode. Your friend calls you on a phone and you keep on talking. While you're talking with your friend on the phone, what's gonna happen to your capacity hours? The consumption is gonna do what? Go up, right? So it depends on you. There is nothing we can do to prevent people from phone conversations while working on the assignment. No, but you just keep in mind, you want to do it at the time when you are less likely to be interrupted. Okay? Uh, you want to, if someone calls you, right? Well, and you really have to answer the call. You want to stop the kernel at least, please, stop the environment. Or you pick up the phone, say 1 second. Hold on 1 second, and then go stop the environment and then go back. You know what I'm saying? Because this is very important. You don't want to run out. Or suppose that you go for lunch, and that's it, you know. If the code is correct, well, not long. Not long. I had students who had hours left after this assignment. But you're gonna be credited you're gonna be credited hours again when the next month starts in July. The hours will be set to 10 again. So, well, if the code is correct, bang, 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 you're done, you know. You copy paste, you're done, maybe 3 hours in the worst case scenario. Well, you run once, well, you could run one cell at a time, but while you're fixing the issue, you want to be careful too, because you know you don't want to consume. So sometimes it's better to stop the kernel, to just stop, you know what I'm saying, and be prepared. But please don't feel scared, okay? Don't feel scared. So what you need to do is first get out of the way the first part, you know. It should be, all you do is just the credentials and the bucket name, okay? For the next assignment, okay, so let's look at the calendar. What's gonna happen in the next assignment? This assignment is due on 27th. You're gonna have few days here. On the July 1st, your hours will be reset to 10. Next assignment is gonna use DB2, which does not consume hours, and it's gonna use R, which consumes hours, okay? So suppose that you're out of hours, it's 27th, you submitted the assignment. What you will do, you still have to do all of the readings, right? You still have to do the quiz. Then you have the DB2 part of the assignment, right? You're gonna watch the recording, and I need for my end this weekend, I need to retest it because they keep on running updates. I need to retest if anything may have come up this week. But you're gonna work on what? You're gonna work on part one. Sorry. You use 2 hours. Well, yeah, exactly. See what I'm saying? Yes. If you know what you're doing, if you understand what you're doing, it should not take long. Trust me. Because 10 hours, are you going to be sitting there and writing like a big project code? Of course not, right? You're given a lot of examples. What you need to do, you have to work on a parser function for the most part, right? Okay. And some good news are that RStudio takes 1 hour, not 1.5, 1 hour. Okay. So here, this is going to be the day when this is due, right? Watch out. If you are submitting late, here are the risks. Python 3.9 will be gone. Okay, assignment was not tested in Python 3.10 because it was just pushed out. If something does not work in Python 3.10, you will need to figure out, right? That's a problem. Another issue is this: you don't want to be consuming July hours for this assignment because you also have assignment 3, right? So sentiment analysis tutorial and assignment 3. Assignment 3, you've got the database part, which, thank goodness, does not consume the hours. And you would need to take advantage of this because there are ungraded SQL exercises. Take this opportunity because the SQL part does not consume the hours. So that was a good opportunity to throw more practice SQL exercises. There will be 10 ungraded, but beware. If the exercise is ungraded, right, it means it's a practice, but on the next assignment, right, on assignment 3, you're going to see something similar graded, but on different data. And also the quiz questions, the sentiment analysis tutorial quiz questions. And there are questions on the output returned by the queries in ungraded exercises. There are a couple questions intentionally. It's intentionally. Well, you may answer however you want. You may run R to answer them, or you may do the, but I recommend actually do all ungraded exercises because later on you will see what happens, right? You will see. All right. And you may have noticed, did the last graded quiz have any questions coming from the week 1 and 2 quiz? Quite possible. Okay. Quite possible. And the quizzes that you get, where you have to get 70 to pass, quite possible that some questions on that quiz may reappear on the quiz that you are submitting. Okay, just be aware of it. Okay, some questions or partial questions may reappear. So you have to do ungraded exercises. If it's ungraded, it does not mean that it's optional. It's giving you the chance to start. Okay, so basically the answer to Mark is this: it depends. You will be starting from the database work anyways. So by the time you're done with that, it's going to be in the new month. Usually it's credited late in the evening on the last day of the month because it's not going by our time. It's going by, I believe it's UTC time zone. Okay, so you're gonna see it. And usually I will, sometimes I send an email to Professor Rozan to let them know that, look, in my account, I got 10 hours, Sometimes I do that. So but still, please watch out. Oh, another thing is that unused hours, you cannot carry over to the next month. Okay, you cannot. Similarly, you cannot borrow hours from next month. So just be aware. Assignment 4 does not use hours. Assignment 4 don't need to worry about hours. It's just this one and 3. Okay. All right, and please do not delete the Spark, the project. because what you will do in the next assignment, you're gonna do this. You're gonna go to the project that you created for this assignment, and you're gonna use this RStudio here. So please do not delete the project, keep it, okay? Because for the next assignment, you're gonna just launch this, okay? Just remember that. In the past, there were workarounds for hours. You can do this. There was something called light account. No more, okay? IBM picked it up. So only one account, right? One feature code for student. That's it. They picked it up. So normal free light accounts, trial account where you have one code, okay? Just remember that. Any other questions, concerns? And that will also apply for the next assignment where you have multiple choice questions. Some questions require selecting multiples. It says if there are two answers, it will say to select two answers. Just remember, okay? Oh, another thing is this. Assignment 2, it consists of 3 parts. If you are out of hours, you can still do part 3, all right? If you're very, very, very short on hours and you have not started, then you need to contact me and we are going to run assignment. We're gonna run part 1 together just to get you the output so that you can start working on the write-up. I know that you may not get the full credit, right? But at least you're gonna get going. If you have like 1 hour left, right? 1 or 2 hours left, I can help you do the Zoom session with you, and then you can run, I can help you run part 1. So that way you will have the output, okay? But I will have to let instructor know, but the trade-off is, look, you don't want to pile things up, right? You want to get as much as you can. If you're short on hours, you have to work with it, you know? Some students use some type of notebook editors that they learned in the past courses. They do the edits first and then when ready, import. So there are options, okay? There are options, but you need to make sure that the notebook runs in the cloud as instructed, okay? Does it make sense? Any questions about that? Anything? Professor Azan, would you like to add anything? Professor Azan, would you like to add, or anyone here? Let me see. Okay. Oh, most welcome. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna let you have the notebook, okay? I'm gonna let you have it. It's for you, okay? So when you import it, immediately stop the kernel, immediately, and you can open it in a view mode, the way I was just doing. And this is stuff that I want you to walk away with it. And you're not asked to build this advanced visualization, you're asked to do some, okay? But I want you to have it, all right? So anybody else, anything else? Then we're gonna call it a night, and I'm gonna see you for the next session soon, maybe a couple weeks from now. We will see, okay? So I'm gonna end the recording and you're gonna get a recording and the files. Okay, so I'm gonna stop the recording and